share in your grief.
Welcome to Aquia TV, the Fifth Estate Live show. This morning, well, it's afternoon already. A lot has happened in Benue. The killings and the visit by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to Benue. That's about the third or so high-profile visit to Benue. In the studio with me here is our public affairs commentator, Joe Abuku.
Thank you.
Most welcome.
Going good to see you again, even though it's under very tragic circumstances.
Yes,
but good to be in your studios once more.
What do you think? Was that visit too late or too early?
Definitely not too early.
Yeah.
What I'll say came late was the statement.
Yeah.
I mean, the attacks happened. We're talking about the attacks.
That's just the Yellowater.
On Yellowater.
Yeah.
Yeah, they happened. Was it the night of Saturday into Sunday, I guess?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So it took. Oh, I'm getting I might be mixing the dates because I know Sunday Mass, Pope Leo did comment on it.
Exactly.
So it wasn't. It took over 24 hours after the attacks before the presidency issued a statement. Now that's flat out late.
Yeah.
I mean, in any part of the world, if any tragedy has happened where 200 lives have been lost, if it's be it an accident or a mishap, I mean, the leadership of that country should be up and running. I mean, engaging citizens about it. Now, this was an attack where armed terrorists moved into a community. I mean, slayed women, children, people in their sleep and all. So we expected that the leadership of the country would be move really fast to address it. That statement was a bit late in coming. It was late in coming, let's be honest. And even when it did come, I mean, it elicited mixed reactions.
Don't even know whether it was mixed.
Yeah, I mean, matter of fact, it elicited outright condemnation from a large section of the public.
Yeah.
It talks about learn to live with
each other,
dialogue and all reprisal. I mean, after no investigations had been conducted, I don't know why they had to use the word reprisals in that circumstance. So that really left many Benue people, and indeed Nigeria as a whole, feeling sore that no, this is not how to respond to stuff like this.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the visit, was the visit late? I mean, I wouldn't characterize the visit as late.
If you are looking at just Yellowater, right?
Looking at just Yellowater. But, I mean, it could have come earlier, and the fact it did come. But then again, even when you play back the visit, there are certain statements that went into it. I mean,
when
stuff
you come to those statements, really.
Exactly.
Because, for me, and we'll come to even the Totiv, who was the hero of this day, you know.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
But before that, look at the rainfall, the torrential rainfall. Those who want to be superstitious, you know, the torrential rainfall blocked the Makodi-Lafia way, and even some of the security agencies that were supposed to be the party that would go on the road were stranded. Their vehicle, you know, they were flooded, you know. It was... Would you want to be spiritual or superstitious about what happened? You know, the torrential rainfall.
Maybe not me, but I understand people who read, who feel that was the God's way of, I mean, showing anger, or nature's way of saying, hey, the leadership of the country hasn't done well. I saw the images, I saw the visuals. Initially, I felt it was maybe the convoy of the Nasarawa state governor that was caught up, but apparently it was the advanced party, the president's party and all. But my worry or my question is, was it the rainfall that made it impossible for the president to go to the scene of these attacks, or was it, quote unquote, his very tight schedule talking about? Because we were reminded he had to rejig or shake off his schedule to come to Benue when he was meant to be to Canada. I don't know why that was. I mean, they had to say that. That for me shows some level of insensitivity, and all. But
I thought they wanted to show that. Well, this is so important.
Well, it is important. You
Yeah.
don't need to show. It is important.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it is he was going to do in Kaduna that couldn't have waited.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there wasn't. And I get it. When you draw a schedule, you go with that schedule. Under normal circumstances, this was not normal circumstances.
Yeah.
So making it sound like you were doing Benue a favor by coming when 200 of your citizens, I mean, these are Nigerians. They are not people from the Republic of Benue or from Cameroon. These are Nigerians who were mauled in their sleep by terrorists or bandits, whatever term people choose to call them. So it's a good thing. Let's take the half full side of the glass. It's a good thing the president did visit.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he engaged with sections of the Benue community. But when you look at the entirety of the visit, there's a lot more that could have been handled better.
Yeah, and the hospital visits. Could he have gone to some of the sites in Guma, or there were some attacks around the North Bank area, at the University of Agriculture, Makurdi area? Couldn't there have been there are IDP camps in Makurdi? There are a number of places that I thought.
I don't even see why he couldn't have gone to Yelota. It's no more than it's less than 30 minutes drive from Makurdi.
Yeah.
And all. And well, again, I wouldn't know the scale of the intensity of the rain and all, but again, it begs the question: the bandits who came to kill people used the rain as cover.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the president could have gone there. Many people, fairness to him, he went to the Benue State University Teaching Hospital where some of the victims of the attack were being treated. He did see them, but it doesn't make for good optics. It doesn't show enough sensitivity that he didn't go. I mean, if he had gone for an on-the-spot assessment of where these attackers came and carried out their very heinous act, he would have gotten a better sense of what communities are going through across the country from groups like the ones that carried out the attack in Guma. Not going there and relying on, worded security reports and all. It doesn't give you a very clear picture of what we're dealing with.
The same security that hasn't done enough, because you are charging them on intelligence. You're charging the IGP of police to arrest. So why are you even relying on their reports?
Exactly, and he might have said those things there, and people have applauded the president, but the body language, didn't convey the level of urgency of what we're dealing with. It looked like, casually asked, "Oh, why am I not seeing? Why are we not? Why has nobody been arrested?" Now, it didn't show. Again, maybe it's the president's communication style, but that's where aid and handlers come in. The president might not know better, but you have people around him that need to make him understand the occasion, understand the moment, read the room, like they say, and know the urgency and the scale of what we're dealing with. He casually said, why has there been no arrests?
Yeah.
That wasn't the place to ask those questions.
Exactly.
Those questions should have been asked the morning news of the attack, if not the night the attacks occurred and all. So people are not very impressed with what has played out in that visit. It's better than if he didn't come at all, because we've had some of these incidents in the past where they end up being statements, copy and paste statements, just edit the name of the new location where an attack has occurred and issued out. But the president needs to rise to these occasions and speak the language that will command like the scale of what Nigerians are dealing with.
Is it even what he says now, what he does? No action. All these killings go on. No one is arrested. No one is killed. None of the attackers are killed. Yet we hear that these are foreign people, foreign terrorists. So the nation is under aggression. There's an aggression from outside, from what the agencies say.
I find it really frustrating because what you just said, those statements sometimes come from the country's Ministry of Defense.
Yes.
So we had the defense headquarters say it's foreigners coming to kill Nigerians. And I don't know what goes through their mind when they say stuff like that, because as the Ministry of Defense, it's incumbent upon you to protect the
nation.
territorial integrity of Nigeria. So why do you casually say foreigners? I mean, come in and kill your citizens? I mean, Nigerians just wander into Benin Republic or Niger or Chad, as the case might be, and kill people and come. I mean, the government of those countries won't take that lightly. So when they say that as if, oh, it's not, it sounds like it's not Nigerian, so we don't know who they are. We don't know. You should know who they are. I mean, we have a Nigeria Immigration Service. We have the Nigeria Police Force. We have the Ministry of Defense. We have the DSS and other agencies. Between them, they should be able to track movement into the country. They should be able to know if armed groups, non-state actors especially, are moving into communities and committing the sort of carnage we saw in Benue. So when the defense headquarters says things like it's for, it doesn't exonerate them. If anything, it indicts them because it simply means they are sleeping at the wheel.
Yeah. Unfortunately, also for us, we saw the politicization of this before and then during this visit. You saw Governor Alia trying to kowtow to the president, trying to appease the president, trying to get people coming shoulder to shoulder, declaring a public holiday, to receive the president, bringing school children in the rains to come and stand in the rains to receive the president. The same rain that was the excuse, that could be the excuse why the president couldn't go. School children were out in that rain, we can see pictures, videos of the way or the extent that Governor Alia went to try and appease the president. Do you think he went too far?
So you have to look at the nature of our politics in Nigeria today and what our politics is turning into. So I've always said it looks like in Nigeria we give 80% to politics, 20% to governance. It even looks like that 20% is being chipped at. So if you notice in the country, we're having a wave of endorsements. Everybody is kowtowing, is going in the direction of trying to make the president happy. Even people who are not members of his party. We've seen people who are not members of the president's party jump into the president's party. Some have stayed in their party and say they are going to work for the president. Here and others. And there's this rush, there's this like a stampede to impress the president. I don't know to what end, because state governors are voted on the basis of how they are assessed by the people they govern. So, yes, I agree with you that the governor of Benue State had overreached himself trying to sort of make the president's visit a feel-good visit. It wasn't. It shouldn't have been a feel-good visit. I mean, the mood was a very dark one. The atmosphere was of mourning. I get it. If a president is visiting, the idea is not to be hostile towards him, but you need to strike that balance. Making school children stand on the highway singing songs or the anthem, that was uncalled for, especially when a public holiday was declared. And even the context of the public holiday, I have issues with it. The public holiday was declared not to mourn Benue people who had died. It was declared to welcome the president for the president's visit. Didn't have to be that way. Even in the room where they had the town hall, I had some really disturbing things. The MC, for instance, I heard him saying, if the president got 2,000 votes in 2023, he's going to get 10,000 votes in 2027 from Benue. That was not the atmosphere for that. I mean, there's still 2 years to go in the life of this administration. There'll be enough time to campaign. But when you're dealing with really tragic circumstances, as we had in Benue, that shouldn't have been the sort of focus. And I hope the governor of Benue State will use this opportunity, because Benue was in a crisis and the handling, to be honest, was underwhelming. It looked like total chaos and a hot mess. You had different memos flying around all over the place, some very embarrassing, some badly written. You had press releases from junior aides, aides of the governor firing aides for leading protests and all. And it just put Benue out there as a state that doesn't have, so the organ of of government, exactly. So the governor after this needs to sit back, really look at his team from commissioners to aides to those heading government agents, because take, for instance, this was a crisis, communication was important. I didn't see the presence of the Benue State Ministry of Information or Commissioner for Information, who were the people designated to speak, because when all was playing out, why were everybody writing memos and press releases and all, who declared a holiday, or did they think through it? So the governor really needs to look at the quality of human resources he has around him, because there's a lot of gaps that have been revealed by this.
We personally wrote to him in the wave of the appointments around September, October 2023. Mm-hmm. We did write to him. There was serious duplicity of positions in the communication strategy section, and really wrote about a 7-page memo to him to say, look, you had too many appointees, and they were going to there will be lack of focus. There will be scramble for positions and for relevance, because everyone wants to now assert themselves. I don't see a hierarchy clearly in the communication, in the public affairs section of Governor Alia, and there was silence, total silence, no response to that. But anyway, we're seeing
it's what happens when you don't get the best hands to do the job, or when let's even say when you don't take a professional or ethical approach to the job. I agree with you. There are too many aides in that space, and it's not just the Benue State government here. We can count the number of media aides the president has. There are over 12 or 13. So at some point it becomes a cacophony of you don't know. Even the nomenclature. Everybody's trying to outdo the next person, show relevance. The information management during this crisis was underwhelming, if we're going to be very honest. The governor was doing multiple interviews, and looked like even the messaging with every interview was a bit conflicting. You expect that at a time like that, he'll have top-line messages, his key talking points, standard lines, reactive lines on this. Those who handle his media engagement should be able to anticipate the talking points, the questions that will come up, the curveballs journalists will throw. But that didn't seem to happen, and each interview seemed to come up with different responses or different lines. So I will stress the point that he needs to take a step back, look at the team. It might need to move a few people around, might need to get rid of some people. I have no qualms in saying that. He might need to restructure things, recalibrate and reconfigure the team. Otherwise, as it currently constituted, there are a lot of missing links.
Do you think Governor Alia has become more isolated now? Listen to the tone of the president's speech. You need to gather a team of former governors, of course, when you're referring to former governors, the SGF is there, the Suswam,
Otom,
Do you see?
Kept calling Atom Pera.
Atom Pera.
Atom Pera,
Do you think he's crestfallen right now? Someone who was on a high horse or something, and simply this visit deflated him. Is that's what I tended to read. I don't know whether you saw that.
His body language shows someone who is downcast. Now, it might be the scale of the tragedy. It might be
efforts to try and clear kilometer 5 and everything, clear grass and everything. At that point, he was really hopeful that the president was going to be.
So again, let's look at the system of democracy, quote unquote, we are morphing into, where presidents now sit like head boys over governors. Shouldn't be the case in a federating unit. It's a federation, the federating parts that make. So ideally, in an ideal situation, the president can be backing out instructions or directives like the governor is answerable or subservient to him. But this is Nigeria. We've seen what played out in Rivers State, how a governor was removed and nobody, bat an eyelid. So I think from the president's end as well, he sees himself as he is leader of the governors.
Yeah.
In some context, perhaps being the fact that he's in charge of 36 states, but not to the extent of back. Ideally, the advice he gave, I don't know if it was an advice, if it was a piece of advice or a direction, that should be something that will come from within the state. But the optics of the president telling the governor, you need to put this community bring, it looked like he's telling the governor, you have some learning to do. Yeah, I mean, it looked like a governance 101 instruction. Shouldn't be the case, but that's how it plays out. And doesn't make the governor look particularly good, but hopefully he bounces back from this and gets back into gear.
Yeah. He also, I mean, the point about a committee of citizens, non-indigens, was the president also, was that some goofing at that point?
It's a goof, and a dangerous goof at that.
Yeah.
And I'm asking myself, does the president really not appreciate the depth of this crisis, or does he just think it can be sandpapered with politics? And I mean, look, we're dealing with flat-out criminality. What we're dealing with in Benue is not so much a communal clash or an argument. I mean, that mischaracterization, just like the Totif said, is very dangerous, and we should walk away from it. A situation where people feel, for whatever reasons, they can invade a community, kill people, strike fear, occupy lands. That should keep the president awake all night, and security chiefs we have. This problem will not be solved through the dialogue thing. It's further down the line. I mean, first of all, deal with the terrorism, deal with the banditry, deal with the criminality, which I mean is claiming lives. He also talked about Benue should create land for ranching. For me too, as someone from Benue, I'm very uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
If Benue has a law on ranching and grazing, states have those powers to make laws. If I want to be a beer distributor in Kano, I can't do it because Kano has a law or has laws in place out that take. If I go to Sokoto, that I want a piece of land in the capital to do for my pig farm, chances are my letter will be shredded and tossed away. And you have to respect that. I know. But when it comes to the case of Benue, even when we're dealing with people who are out to grab land, to establish whatever sort of systems they want, Benue people have been told, go and negotiate. I mean, the past president did the same thing. It's not going to work. I think what would work is the presidency, or I mean the federal government, letting the citizens know that states are empowered to make laws that don't go against the constitution of the country. I think we used to have a task force on environmental
sanitation
that they outlawed straying livestock. So goats could not move around.
Yeah.
This was I'm talking in the 90s. Yeah. They would move around time. They saw any goat straying, those goats will be seized and taken to the office. So what makes it legal for, say, Okada to be outlawed in a place like Abuja or some states, but then in Benue, the government can make a law about outlawing open grazing. And then, so people need to respect our laws, and the federal government needs to step up to address criminality. If we have communal clashes or others, we can have those conversations, but what we're dealing with now is not a communal clash. It's not a farmer-header clash. No. It's a land grab being laced with murders, and some people call it ethnic cleansing, and I won't blame them.
Yeah. We're going to listen to the Totiv because I think he made that point so clearly. We're going to listen to the Totiv. Before that, let's go on a break.
Okay.
And then we come back, listen to the Totiv, this whole land grabbing stuff, and the idea that you've killed 200 people from a place like Yelwata. How many people are left? So is there a likelihood that they are going to receive more attacks and that place will be wiped out and then the invaders take over? We'll come and discuss that after the break.
Okay.
So please hold on and share this video. Those of you watching on YouTube and on Facebook, we'll be right back.
In a world filled with impactful stories and transformative experiences, the essence of change is vital. That's where we come in. With over 16 years of experience shooting documentaries, we specialize in productions for local and international non-governmental organizations. Our focus is on showcasing the results and impacts of non-profit intervention on individuals, institutions, and society. We capture the success stories that emerge from these interventions, allowing project management experts to focus on designing projects with the greatest value to the beneficiaries. Our skilled team of filmmakers, storytellers, and technicians serve as a powerful tool, raising awareness, fostering empathy, and mobilizing support for the cause that truly matters. If you are a non-governmental organization looking to amplify your impact through compelling storytelling, let us bring your success story to life, ensuring that the world hear the voices that deserves to be heard.
Connect with us by sending an email to info@isumedia.net.ng for more interesting updates. Follow us on our social media platforms @ISUMedia. ISUMedia, ocean of ideas.
About the misinformation and misrepresentation of the security crisis in Benue State, Your Excellencies, it is not herder farmers clashes. It's not communal clashes. It's not repressor attacks or skirmishes. It is this misinformation that has led to suggestions such as remain tolerant, negotiate for peace. Here in Benue is a calculated, well-planned, full-scale by herder terrorists and bandits, which has been on for decades and is worsening every year. Wrong diagnosis will always lead to wrong treatment. So we are dealing with something.
Yeah, so you can hear the Totiv talking about, really correcting the president. The whole notion of dialogue in the person of the secretary to the government of the federation. Where do you think this happened from?
Seems to me like the challenge is sometimes we take a lazy approach to things in this country on many fronts. In fairness to the president, this mischaracterization of what we're dealing with in Benue in parts of Kaduna simply characterize it as farmer header clashes and make it a global climate change thing, overland. You think, there's this piece of land, the farmer wants to farm on it, the header wants that simply doesn't project the crisis for what it is. So that narrative has gotten some meat over it, on it over the decades in the media. The local media too has keyed it in on it, and then looks like even security agencies have simply bought into that characterization, where it's simply seen as, it's a farmer header clash. It's the governor himself sometimes refers to it as skirmishes, which undermines the scale of what the problem is. So I don't know if it's a lack of sincerity on the part of security agencies. They should know what the true, nature of this crisis is, and if it's being fair to the president as a tussle over land for the purpose of either farming or grazing, that is not it. Look, in Benue State, even in let's take the Benue State capital.
Yeah.
I have a friend who is based in the States. He's from Benue State.
Okay.
He visited, he's based in the United States. He schooled in Benue, primary, secondary, and university before he moved to the United States. And he visited a few years ago and drove his car in a part of North Bank. North Bank is a part of Makodi that has two military formations.
Yeah.
There's the 72 Airborne Battalion and the Army School of Military Engineering, NASME. And that he was driving to a point where the soldiers themselves say, you can't go towards there.
Yeah.
You will deal with violent headers, and you may not make it alive. That was soldiers warning him inside Makodi.
Yeah.
What does that say? These guys, they've come, they've killed, they've displaced local populations, they've taken over land, and it seems like they are bringing people to come and dwell on those lands.
Yeah.
I visited Guma local government, which is where Yelwata is located, for a friend's father's burial.
And that's Otom's local government.
Exactly.
Right?
In fact, Otom was at that burial I went for. And the fear, if you see the effort they put into fortifying the grave, because herders have destroyed homes, and sometimes even when people bury their loved ones, they go desecrate. They remove the corpse, desecrate the grave. You will see that large expanses of land have been deserted by humans, by people. You see people with hundreds of cattle head moving around. So what we're dealing with is a clear land grab. That's a clear part of it, and all, because somehow, for some reason, those who have cattle head feel ranching is not part of their culture, and the only way they know to graze cattle is to move around, and that simply is not sustainable in 2025. I mean,
that's not an argument they want to listen to.
Exactly. I mean, the past president talked about you need to recover grazing reserves. Like, what are you talking about? Grazing reserves, grazing routes gazetted during the colonial era in 1960. Now, in 1960, in fact, this building we are seated in, I'm sure it didn't exist in 1990. I'm not talking 1960. So what was the size? What was the scale of? You might have seen pictures of what the Hilton looks like in the 80s.
It's real grass.
Exactly,
forest.
it's like a forest. Abuja was a forest as far back as the 70s. So how possible is it to recover so-called grazing routes? What? And let's even open this argument up a bit. I had to do a quick search. Nigeria is not even, if you look at cattle population globally, Nigeria is not even in the top 15. In fact, in Africa, Nigeria is not in the top in terms of countries with high. Kenya is somewhere number 5, around 22 million head of cattle. You have to go further down. Kenya is a smaller country, has a smaller population, but we don't hear of this violence.
They have though, but not.
Well, they do have, but it's exactly not on the scale. Ethiopia, Sudan, they do have occasional clashes of either people trying to steal or but they're not on the scale. We have been dealing with this for decades, especially even given the size of Nigeria. So people just need to adopt modern ways of rearing cattle. Brazil has, the cattle industry in Brazil, the livestock sector in Brazil. It generates tons of money. In the US as well, in India, and all. We don't have a cattle economy that's anywhere as strong as other countries. Our cattle population is not high. Why do we keep having these clashes? It looks like there are other elements tied into it, and those elements are what are affecting states like Benue and Plateau and Southern.
They've talked about minerals, that there's a politics of solid minerals, especially that when the geological surveys have revealed some of these minerals, it's easier to just go chase the people off the land, and then illegal mining starts.
If that's the case, that again indicts the government. I mean, we know minerals in many parts of the world, especially in Africa, is the cause of so many, Sierra Leone, Liberia, you name it. So my sense of it is the federal government isn't given this this violence the scale of seriousness it deserves. And in failing to do so, it's creating the pathway for a bigger conflict in the future that may threaten the stability of Nigeria if it's not threatened already. So someone needs to step up to the plate and deal with this and all. A new livestock ministry has been created. Personally, I didn't see a need for that ministry.
There's a ministry of
cattle headers to educate them on modern ways of rearing cattle. We can't continue. It's not possible that someone will move with cattle from either Sokoto to Port Harcourt or from Kano to Yenagoa and not expect to come in contact with people and come. It's not going to work. It simply wouldn't work. So to think we have to go the route of grazing reserves and grazing routes is simply not possible.
And then allocate land for ranching dictated by the president. Anyway, before there's something that has been a bit worrisome in terms of how, I mean, when we think about there are some people that are making statements, like the Macban, Mietiala, that are still saying we're not around the table. So it's this, whatever the president has done is not going to be sustainable. Is this foreshadowing another round of violence for Benue? Especially given that previously when the Chief of Army Staff, about 2 weeks ago, the violence became worse. Prior to that, the police,
police IG,
the IG visited the violence in Naka, in Okpamaju, in Otobi, in Agatu, in Ukum. So after each high-profile visit where the government wants to assert itself that we are in control, Benue gets harder hit. Are people now supposed to start thinking that, look, now that it's even the commander-in-chief, we should brace up for worse in Benue?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't cast it as brace up for worse, but we've not seen an end to these unfortunate attacks. The chances that we're going to see a few more of them. And the conversation should be, what security system do we need to adopt? The current security system can't take care of this. I mean, what's the total population of police officers we have? What's the size of our military? I mean, they can't stretch, they can't man or stretch around the country. And also, that's why this conversation about local solutions need to come up. It could be, we've been talking about the state police thing for a while now. It doesn't seem like it's been given as much boost, or the will to do it is not there. But states need to secure their boundaries and deal with their internal security operations. If Benue State had its own Benue State Police, they'll be better placed to contain.
They've got the boundary.
I think the governor had set up this is something community volunteer force. I don't know how much, how equipped or motivated local solutions are important. Nobody needs permission to stay alive or need someone to greenlight you to leave. You need to take your safety into your hands. If you look at statements like you reference Macban, which is like the Cattle Breeders Association. When you hear some of the statements they make, you begin to wonder, do we operate an apartheid system in Nigeria where certain groups are treated with some level of specialty or treated as superior to others? That seems to be getting into people's mind that, look, this may be what we're dealing with. Not long ago, the FCT minister had one of his media shows. And the journalist asked him about cattle grazing in the FCT. And the very tough-talking Wike, what did he say? He said that's an area to tread with caution. Tread with caution. So in the FCT, it's possible right in the central business district to see someone or traffic.
We see them
we see them
exactly.
Traffic, vehicular traffic stopped for cattle to cross. We all know that's not appropriate, but for whatever reason, government of Nigeria is afraid to confront this. Now, the sort of dialogue the president is recommending for Benue State is the dialogue the government of Nigeria needs to have with state. I mean, look, this is no longer sustainable. This has to stop. I mean, if you want to set up a ranch, we can have this facility where you can take a loan, buy a piece of land, or rent a piece of land and set up a ranch. States, if they are willing to, should offer the incentive. No state should be compelled to make land available for ranch. If a state wants to make land,
the president should lead this dialogue that he's advocating.
Exactly. So if a state wants to set up ranches, I mean, Benue, I think the former the Second Republic governor of Benue, Aperako, had a ranch in Benue, Ikyogen Cattle Ranch. There's a ranch in Obudu. Now, if states they didn't do those things under pressure, if a state sees the need to key into the livestock sector and set up a ranch, they should do so on their own volition. It shouldn't be the federal government holding whip that, hey, you need to produce XYZ hectares of land for people to come and graze their cattle. That's not how it works, and that wouldn't be the solution.
Let me play the devil's advocate and listen to Alia's talking points, where he says oh, there are people who rustle cattle, and that's why. I mean, we know that no life is equivalent to cattle, So is that truly an undertone that, because the Mieti Allah people always raise that also when there are the previous dialogues, that people come rustle our cattle, even the livestock guards, is it defunct now? Because the defunct livestock guards were also implicated in being cattle rustlers themselves. And so when they are left defenseless, they resort to whatever they resort to. But at some point, they themselves will deny the violent attackers. But is this something that really is not being paid attention to? Cattle rustling and the fact that the owners of the cattle say, we don't have any other...
Yes, so we won't sit here and deny that nobody has... cattle rustling, I guess, is cattle theft in simple English.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear of it in different parts of the country. It happens in Zamfara, it happens in Katsina.
Yeah.
We can't say for sure it doesn't happen in Benue. I wouldn't know. But cattle theft is the same as someone stealing a vehicle or a motorcycle somewhere, or stealing a loaf of bread in a store. Now, should the response to someone stealing a motorcycle be people to swarm down on a community with machetes and guns and kill? If cattle is rustled, the appropriate way to deal with that will be to report that to the authorities, be the police or the local governing authorities, to take that up.
Yeah.
There is no circumstance where, even if there's established proof that the cattle has been stolen, for armed men or terrorists to descend on a community and kill people. You've seen some of the victims of these killings.
Yeah.
4-year or 2-year-old babies.
Yeah.
Can a 2-year-old baby steal a cow? Simply not possible. So, again, it's why I say the federal government needs to meet with the leadership of these groups. On countless occasions, they've cited that reason that, we struck. I mean, there are times they've not denied it. There are times they've claimed responsibility. You just need to do some video searches or some internet searches. You see, they've given reasons for why a certain attack happened. Cattle were rustled, our person was killed. I mean, if these things are not reported, there's no way of verifying the authenticity or the veracity of those claims. So, cattle rustling, whether it occurs or not, should never be a reason for communities to be sacked and that level of violence brought upon it. And that's something the federal government, the government of Nigeria, should be having with the leadership of these groups. Yeah. I mean, the group of people that own cattle, or Mark Band in this case, their political leadership in the regions where they are more prominent, and whatever group they find themselves in. On no account should a human being be killed because cattle has been stolen. Because cattle has been stolen.
Yeah.
If there's proof that cattle is stolen, there should be a channel to compensate or to make recompense for that. It shouldn't be paid with human lives. Cattle are meant to serve human needs, not the other way around. So you can't feed a human life to cater to cows. It simply doesn't work that way.
People tend to be, even communities now, that have been under attack, are almost resorting to self-help because the government hasn't helped. Is that the self-help that the cattle breeders also themselves have resorted to? And what's the prognosis of this when now we get to the level where communities are resorting to self-defense? The former Senate President David Mark advocated it. The DG of the State Security Services himself advocated it in a popular video that has been making the rounds. If this resort to self-help happens, will we have a Benue left, and will we have a country left?
The question is, what option do people have if those who are paid to protect them can't protect them? It's bad you just lay down and wait to be killed.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to. I don't think self-defense is against the law.
No.
there are situations where sometimes you even have to take a life as part of self-defense if it's established as, yes, your life was under threat, in danger of being taken, and the only way you could defend yourself was to take a life. The law can make excuses for that.
But there's someone who did that in Taraba, was it Adamawa State?
Okay.
And he was sentenced to death just this year.
Well, I mean, I think I said that story. I didn't quite follow the logic of the argument, but there's a popular saying about something being the first law of nature. I think it's self-defense or so. Now, yes, if we can't tell people to just stay helpless and lay prostrate even when they are coming under attacks. If it becomes evident that law enforcement can't protect lives and property of any community, then it's incumbent upon that community to form themselves into groups. Okay, so they need to operate within the ambit of the law, though. Form themselves into group, monitor, carry out patrols, have warning systems, alarm systems, just to keep themselves alive. I mean, we've seen it play out in different parts of the country. The southwest region, where the president comes from, has there's something called Amotekun. And when they were setting it up, the president of Nigeria at the time, President Buhari, didn't like it. The Attorney General Malami kicked against it. But for them, it was an existential thing. And they went on. They didn't listen to the blackmail of the government and said an Amotekun is functional till date. Let's take Hisba, for instance, that's existed for very long in Kano. It's their own state security outfit. Hisba makes arrests. I mean, even in civil issues, in criminal issues,
Hisba organizes weddings.
Exactly.
Hisba.
In moral issues, I've had a case where even a conventional Nigeria police force personnel was arrested for messing around with a woman he wasn't supposed to. So states should be allowed, and that's, look, it's part of what a federation should be. States should be allowed to have.
Should states be allowed, or states already have been taken? I mean, Benue even had the livestock guards. They have the volunteer force or something.
Let me rephrase that. States need to take full control of their security. They need to take responsibility. Let me not say full control, because there's a level of control they can have. But the reality of Nigeria is you can't simply rely on the federal government. I mean, how many police officers do we have? How many of them are doing VIP duties and all? So states need to begin to, the security, and that's where the security vote conversation comes in. I mean, it looks like money that just goes up in smoke. You need to invest heavily in technology. You need to sort of partner with the federal government security agencies in areas where partnership is needed in terms of equipping them where possible. You need to invest in technology, in warning signs and motivating people, local support groups, by whatever name they go by. It's no longer practicable to rely. Again, I'm not calling for anarchy.
No, it's not.
It's no longer practicable.
It's a federal government.
Exactly.
It's a federal system.
Because if you go to countries like the United States, many countries, there's the federal agencies. Say take the US, the FBI at the federal level for federal crimes. Every state has its own state police. You have the New York Police Department. You have the Las Vegas Police Department, LA. Then even the local counties have their security. All of them armed to secure life and property. We can adopt that in Nigeria. We can adopt it and should adopt it. This system of having a federal police force that oftentimes are more interested in protecting the government establishment and less bothered about ordinary citizens, it's not sustainable. And we've tried it for all this over 60 years. It's not working. Time to step up to something new.
Okay, the people, we as a people, are we organizing enough? Because even when we organize, we're responding in pockets, But you're seeing these attacks, say, from Kaduna, Plateau, Benue, and you see Enugu and Imo and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole, even Edo State, Kogi State. Shouldn't there be, have we not reached a point where as citizens groups we should come together and form whatever needs to be formed and collaborate? Because the attack, say, in Benue, run into Nasarawa, or attack in Nasarawa, run into Benue. Attack in Taraba, run into Benue, or Benue, run. So there's no intelligence sharing amongst the citizens groups that are responding. Shouldn't that be the level of conversation that should be happening?
I agree with you. That level of conversation, not even conversation, that's what should be taking place now.
Yeah.
Local populations need to organize themselves, identify the points of vulnerability within their communities, and take solid steps to address or plug off those points of vulnerability. It could be in terms of, like you said, attacks happen in one. People come across the border or boundary, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Launch attacks, go into. So there should be collaboration even at some level between states, and then at some level within state. I mean, for instance, yesterday the president, the committee referenced also, or the committee prescribed, also talked about the governor of Nasarawa State.
Yeah.
Fair enough, we can have a committee that has the governor of Nasarawa State or states that we share boundaries with.
Yeah.
But then again, internally within Benue, we need to have certain arrangements that is just for Benue people, because you can't say for sure what other people's game plan, where their sympathies lie and all. So I agree with you that, citizens have a right to. It's a UN right, it's a constitutional guarantee right to protect themselves, and they need to begin to come together, begin to identify ways of warding off the security threats they face, because it makes no sense if you just lay helpless and people come in from time to time, kill your future generation. It doesn't make sense at all.
So coming back maybe to the Totiv, because I don't think we've appreciated him well enough in terms of how he redefined the conversation with his bravery, to stand there and say, look, there's been a mischaracterization. How do you think the response going forward? Because you have seen a governor himself that has been saying these are skirmishes, these are this, and then you have a president that is close to the SGF, to the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, issuing statements that say things like dialogue, reprisal. So it seems like the political leaders, especially the former governor who is the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and the sitting governor, seem to have been the one the Totiv was correcting in a sense. Do you see this redefinition changing how the engagement is going to be going forward?
I think so, and it was about time someone said that in very clear black and white terms. Because, if you notice the governor's interviews, he was trying to put caramel or ribbons on what the situation is. So at some point he says it's skirmishes, at some point he talks about local internal banditry, which, we're not going to lie about the existence of that, but it's totally different from the sort of attacks we see from these bandits that come into Benue. The Totiv had to hit the nail on the head, and he did that clearly. And he used a very good analogy that if you do the wrong diagnosis, the treatment is going to be wrong. And all. Now, you have to understand, even if I don't appreciate where the president comes from, he's president of Nigeria. He sees himself as a father to all. He feels at some point certain things he might say might pitch him with one side of the country. Elections are around the corner in 2 years. I mean, under normal circumstances, 2 years would seem like a very long time, but in Nigeria politics, it's like a week. So he's also not trying to lose votes from a certain part of the country. He wants to retain sympathies everywhere.
The president treats Benue will make him either win or lose votes, maybe all around the southeast and then south-south.
Absolutely. And all. So it's good that Totif told him that. I'm sure he should ask more questions. He should demand more specific briefings. That whole generic farmer header crisis simply doesn't cut it. It doesn't project the conflict for what it is. So the Totif did a good job. I mean, the governor in his speech still sounded diplomatic and had ribbons around his his words. The SGF, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, is part of the failing federal government that is unable to take care of this thing head on. So in his place as well, I understand that he can't be seen to be bashing the government he's serving. People think that, okay, even if you can't do that openly, can you at least get into the president's office and tell him...
The expressions we hear from the president would have told us you are doing the groundwork, because he has said, the press statement he issued earlier in the week was that he had been working on the ground.
Okay.
You know,
that's the SGF.
The SGF's office.
Okay.
They say the SGF did not want to seem to have been meddling in the affairs of the Benue state government and all of that. That's why he had been quiet.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. But if you have been doing the groundwork as you say you have been doing, we shouldn't hear the kind of utterances that came from the president.
That's true. But again, the president will not take... I agree. I mean, we expect the SGF being the governors, the president's peer in terms of they were governors at the same time. They started the whole ACN thing.
They were friends from the 1993, 1992, 93, when
Republic. Yochiayu
was Senate President and Akume was like an aide to the Senate President.
But the point, he can do that, and I hope he has done that. I hope he'll keep doing it, letting the president know the real situation and not trying to prevaricate. But then again, the president will not take security briefing from the SGF over what comes from his NSA or what comes from his DG of...
These are the people that haven't done anything.
Exactly.
Why would the president...
And the NSA, some even see him as an interested party. Again, it's views I've heard, not my view, but there are people that see him as an interested party. He was in Benue himself some other time ago, and he also rehashed the same talking points. Oh, they're stealing cattle. Oh, give people land to... That just adds fuel to the whole fire and doesn't... The solution to this thing is to embrace modern ways of breeding cattle.
If cattle is really the issue, because
exactly.
That's an issue. We know it may not be cattle.
Well, it's a part of it. It may not be the entirety of it, but it's a part of it, because again, you always hear about you said Mieti Ala Cattle Breeders Association complained about not being invited to the town hall. A town hall in which only 3 people spoke. The Totif speaking for Benue communities. The governor as the governor of the state, and then the president. So I don't know how there wasn't a Q&A, there wasn't an interactive session. So I don't know how they hoped to come in. No,
but let me stay with the role of the Totif and the religious institutions or traditional institutions. If the Totif could be that vocal, and we also saw the Sultan and some other religious and traditional institutions speak up when the Edo incident happened, the Uromi incident. Do you think they have been too quiet as far as this monument? We're talking about 11 or so in Uromi. Now you're talking 200 that have been killed overnight, and not even Sanusi Lamido Sanusi as the emir. Not the Sultan, not all the other traditional leaders that normally would speak out, have not spoken out. Is that loud?
It's worrying, and that's why I say sometimes it looks like we operate an apartheid system in Nigeria, or an animal farm sort of setup, where some people are above others. I agree with you. You referenced the Oromo incident that took place in Edo State. There was a firestorm of criticism from northern leaders, but the governor of Edo State had to go all the way to Kanu, dressed himself in a very fine robe like yours, with a cap, to offer his apologies. The Kanu governor gave conditions: you must do this, you must do that. We hear from the Sultan. They've been quiet on this one, and it's a really worrying signal. But then again, Nigeria has become a country where sometimes people even speak from both sides of the mouth, or when they speak, it's just to tick a box. They don't really mean it from their heart. So what we demand is action, action, action. I mean, the Sultan or whatever leaders in the north who haven't spoken up, or in other parts of the country, they can keep their awards and sympathies, that's fine. What Benue people and what the people of Nigeria need is for actions like this to be prevented from happening, responsible for it to be brought to be held to the full extent of the law. We can't reduce these things to condemnations, thoughts and prayers, the usual statements that are rehashed over time. But it doesn't look good that when it seems like people from certain parts of the country get caught up in violence, there's a gale of criticism and demands, and then when it looks like certain people have carried out certain atrocious acts, we hear silence. It's a worrying sign.
I don't know if there are comments. Those of you watching, if you have made comments, I want to check from the screen. Yep. There are comments from behind the scenes, if anybody, before we leave. Because I know the Benue issue, there have been... Okay. All right. So we have on the screen there, and they've made donations to the people in Yelewata. And in fact, there have been questions about why all the killings that have happened in the past, none of these people responded. But these are private initiatives. We cannot dictate when it's okay or when they have the resources, when they are able to. So I really want to appreciate all the private initiatives that have been bringing succor to the citizens that suffered from these attacks. I also saw pictures of Father Bishop Avenya, Bishop Move Avenya.
Yeah, we know Bishop Avenya, very forthright, straight shooting.
But you know that they say he lost his mother and 3 relatives or so.
Oh my goodness.
4 relatives in the Yelewata clash. So
that's sad.
I don't know if
governor stood up. The governor of Edo had to travel. More than 200 people were killed. When I woke up this morning and I got the story of...
Frank, he spoke directly to the nature of the crisis.
And he was able to collate the names, the list of people that were killed that night in Yelewata.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if they have a picture of Bishop Avenya. If we have it, we can.
Was he at the?
He was at the scene.
Oh, okay.
Okay, he was at the scene in Yelewata. So finally, before we go, just one thing that worries me. So now we're talking death. People have been killed, and lands are left fallow, like you talked about in Guma. What strategies should be adopted to reoccupy those places where people have been killed? Because there will be the internal politics of the internal issue of, if I take, say, another thief man to Yelewata and say, occupy this land, will the locals not get upset? But if the armed herders also are occupying, grazing their cattle, is that okay? So what are the systems to ensure that all the deserted lands in Agatu, in Bamaju, some have been deserted in Otobi, some in Ukum, some in the Sankara axis, you know, in Gwe, in Naka, in Balom, I see many places that have been deserted. What should be the strategy to retake these lands? Because we have seen that same thing in Plateau State, where in Kaduna State, where those lands are now permanently occupied by the people who killed them.
Under no circumstance should occupiers or invaders be allowed to take over land, ancestral lands, especially because in most of these communities we're dealing with ancestral lands. These are not lands that people will go to rent a room or an apartment. It's places where they've known since birth. Their parents lived there, their grandparents lived there. So that's something the state government, working with, I guess, the federal government in this case, with local communities and all. I mean, if someone sacked, you might have been sacked from your village, but you know where your village is. You know where your place used to be and all. So identifying those who are actually owners to this land shouldn't be an issue. So the state government needs to engage the federal government and regular authorities, like in a very robust manner, to ensure, because many of these people don't think they've moved. Many of them are camped in displaced IDP camps. They've been displaced. The number of camps in Benue is swelling, and it's something new to us. We didn't have this sort of thing. The first time some of us who grew up in Benue since birth saw a sign of displacement was the 2001 crisis in Zakibiam when Obasanjo was president. So it's a new phenomenon to us. We have camps in Makurdi, we have camps in different parts. The government needs to work with the federal government, whether it's represented by NEMA or whatever, the security agencies and other appropriate authorities to resettle these people. I mean, whoever lays claim to land should be able to have whatever, like some proof or historical whatever claim to that land. You can't just happen upon the land because you brought in guns and machetes or whatever. So I know it's a delicate thing, but it's doable. I know once the political will is there. And the Benue State government shouldn't sleep on this. You can't keep boxing people. I mean, having people hold up within IDP camps while the ancestral lands are taken over by invaders or foreigners. So that should be a top priority for the Benue State government. Hopefully, this committee being set, if they said it, would engage the federal government and they'll move to take steps towards that very fast.
All right. So before we go, look at the political leaders and tell them what to do. I mean, in terms of, they've been told to unite and be in a committee and blah, blah, blah. But what should they do? What's your advice to them, to Alia, to Akume, to all the leaders?
Yeah, so we get it that in politics there will always be difference of opinion. But as far as us as the people of Benue, the political leaders, irrespective of which camp they come from, should speak in unison as regards the threats we face. They should work in unison as well. This is not time to, we could have our quarrels about politics, about political ideology, but as far as our state, which we inherited from our ancestors or our forebearers, is concerned, there should be only one voice, and we should march in the same direction. And most importantly, we need to have that strong conversation about securing our land and securing lives of our children and our mothers and our kids. We can't just lay helpless and cry all the time. So that should be the number one priority for everyone who is from Benue State now at the leadership and at the followership level. But the leadership should lead from the front because that's the direction we need to move in now.
Thank you very much. I would join you in saying that because I say to the political leaders, whatever you are, it's simply because there is a Benue.
Absolutely.
If you are a governor, it's because there is a Benue. you are a secretary to the government of Federation, you are an appointee representing Benue.
True.
So whatever you are, whether you're a member of the House of Reps, a member of a senator, a minister, you are that because there is a Benue land mass that exists called Benue. If that land does not exist, you lose all claims to anything. So you need to work together, put aside your differences to ensure that you have that land before you start talking of being.
And if I'll just chip in, but I think for the Benue State governor as well, this is an opportunity for him to do some house cleaning. There really needs to be some moving chairs and tables around within the Benue State government structure. This crisis has laid lots of things bare for all to see, and if we're going to get the best out of our state, we can't keep up with the current setup. So he needs to do some recalibration, some configuration.
Very true.
Otherwise, it doesn't look good.
Very true. Thank you so much, Joe Books.
Thank you. Always good to talk.
It's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To the grieving families, we really want to send our condolences from Aquia TV, and those who have been watching, we thank you for being with us all this while. Please continue to share the video, and also your comments are important. We want to see them. We want to know what you think, because that's what governance eventually means. Thank you.
Dealing with a war. The second apprehension, Your Excellency, we have is the politicization of the crisis. Politicians in the states are busy politicizing the crisis, passing blames instead of joining hands to address the crisis. We hear there are some politicians who would even prefer that the crisis should worsen so that it will be a basis for declaration of a state of emergency in Benue State.